Have you ever looked at a bird sleeping on a tree branch and thought, wait a second, why doesn't it just fall off? If I tried to nap balanced on a stick, gravity would win in less than a second. And yet sparrows, pigeons, even owls can rest on the thinnest twigs for hours, sometimes swaying in the wind without ever letting go. It feels almost magical, but the real answer is even better than magic. It's a built-in piece of natural engineering hidden in the bird's legs. The mystery starts with a question. When you and I fall asleep, our muscles relax, and if we were holding something like a glass or a phone, it would slip right out of our hands. So if birds relax their feet during sleep, they should let go too, but they don't. What's going on here? The key is that bird legs have a special automatic system called a tendon lock. Think of it as nature's version of a seatbelt. When a bird bends its legs to perch, the flexing motion pulls on tendons that run all the way down into the toes. Those tendons tighten automatically, like pulling on the strings of a puppet. As they tighten, the toes curl inward and clamp around the branch. And here's the genius part. This locking doesn't require active muscle power. It's completely passive, built into the geometry of their anatomy. That means the harder gravity pulls the bird downward, the stronger the grip becomes. The bird is literally held in place by its own weight. Imagine holding a shopping bag with handles looped around your wrist. Even if your hand is relaxed, the downward pull of the bag tightens the loop and keeps it secure. That's basically how the tendon lock works for a sparrow's toes. Once it bends its leg and lands, the weight of its body completes the mechanism. No conscious effort, no grip strength required. Now picture this from a different angle. A human hand is like a tool that needs fuel, muscle contractions powered by constant energy. If you fall asleep squeezing your fist, eventually your muscles fatigue and you let go. But a bird's system is more like a ratchet wrench or a zip tie. Once engaged, it stays locked without extra effort. That's why they can spend the entire night perched without once waking up to adjust. Let's zoom in for a moment to understand how this lock is built. Inside the bird's leg, tendons are like ropes that run from the calf down through the ankle, past the heel, and into each toe. They pass through tiny sheaths, grooves, and pulley-like notches that ensure they don't slip out of place. When the leg bends at the ankle joint, those ropes are pulled taut. The toes respond by curling inward automatically. It's an elegant mechanical chain reaction. And when the bird finally straightens its legs to take off, the tendons relax and the toes release instantly. No decision is needed, no thought process, just physics and biology working in sync. To give you a clearer analogy, think about those old-fashioned finger traps made of woven bamboo. You put your finger in, and when you pull back, the tube tightens and traps you. The bird's toes are like the reverse version. When the leg bends, the system cinches tighter, and when it extends, the grip lets go. It's simple, reliable, and incredibly efficient. What's really fascinating is how universal this adaptation is across species. Tiny songbirds use it to sleep safely in trees. Owls use it to hold onto branches while they rotate their heads in watchful silence. Even some water birds rely on a version of it to cling to narrow reeds. Without this lock, a sleeping bird would be an easy target for predators, falling to the ground every time it dozed off. But with it, they can perch high above danger, hidden in the branches, resting peacefully while gravity itself becomes their bodyguard. Let's add a thought experiment here. Imagine if humans had a similar tendon lock in our fingers. You could carry your grocery bags or hang from a pull-up bar without effort. Rock climbers would never worry about grip fatigue. Even something as simple as holding your phone in bed would feel different, because your fingers would stay closed on autopilot. This shows just how ingenious this system is, and how evolution solves problems with mechanical precision. Another surprising aspect is how little energy birds spend maintaining this grip. In engineering, one of the golden rules is efficiency. The best machine is the one that does the most with the least input. Birds perfected this long before humans built machines. Their tendon lock uses zero energy once engaged. It's the same principle that makes pendulums, springs, and ratchets so valuable in human technology. Nature already invented a perpetual safety clamp, and birds carry it everywhere in their legs. There's also a hidden bonus. Because the tendon lock is automatic, a bird can perch securely even if it's injured, sick, or deeply asleep. Its nervous system doesn't have to stay alert to keep the grip. That means their brains can fully rest, which is crucial for survival. Sleep is already risky in the wild. You're vulnerable to predators, weather, and balance. This system removes one big danger: falling. It's like nature installing a safety net right into the skeleton. And it's not just about trees. Some species that sleep on cliffs or inside narrow spaces use the same mechanism to anchor themselves. Swifts, for example, spend so much of their lives in the air that when they land, their tendon lock lets them cling vertically to rock faces or even walls. Imagine the alternative. If they had to constantly use muscle power to hold on, their tiny bodies would burn out in minutes. Instead, the lock lets them rest, recharge, and survive. To fully appreciate this, let's compare it to human inventions. When we design machines, we often use something called fail-safe systems. That means if the power goes out, the system automatically falls into a safe state. Elevators, for example, are built with brakes that clamp shut if the cable loses tension. Birds carry a biological version of this. If their muscles completely relax during deep sleep, their grip doesn't fail, it engages. It's a perfect example of what engineers would call default safe. That's why you'll never see a tree full of birds raining down like apples when the night falls. Their very anatomy is wired to prevent that. And think about the evolutionary advantage this gives. Millions of years ago, early birds that lacked this system probably faced constant accidents. Every nap could have been a deadly risk. The ones that developed a tendon lock had a massive survival edge. They could rest in safety, conserve energy, and live long enough to pass on the trait. Over generations, the lock became universal in perching birds. What started as a small adaptation turned into one of the most reliable natural designs we see today. Here's one last perspective that makes this even more awe-inspiring. When you look at a tree at night full of small birds lined up on branches, it may seem ordinary. But what you're really seeing is a living demonstration of biomechanics at work. Every single one of those creatures is suspended by a lock hidden in their legs, a tiny miracle of nature's engineering. The forest doesn't just sleep, it hangs in balance, each bird perched by a system that humans would have to design with gears, springs, and clamps. But that evolution delivered ready-made. There's another layer of brilliance here that often goes unnoticed. Birds don't just perch with this lock when they're on branches. Many species actually use it in flight landings like brakes. When they swoop down and wrap their toes around a branch, the automatic locking system ensures they won't slip on impact. It's as if the landing gear on a plane came with built-in clamps that secured it to the runway without the pilot touching a control. This shows how one simple mechanism serves multiple purposes, conserving energy, guaranteeing safety, and enabling survival strategies across different environments. Let's test our intuition. If you imagine hanging on a pull-up bar and suddenly drifting into sleep, you know you would collapse almost instantly. That's because your grip depends on constant muscle activation. The moment the nervous system relaxes, the muscles give up. Birds bypass this entirely. The tendon lock doesn't care whether the bird is awake or unconscious. It just works, 24/7, as long as the leg is bent. This is why chicks can perch without falling, and why even aging birds can still cling through the night without struggling. Now here's a surprising twist. Not all birds rely equally on this adaptation. Ground birds like chickens or ostriches don't need it as much because they don't roost high in trees. Instead, perching birds, called passerines, are the masters of the tendon lock. This group includes sparrows, finches, robins, and many of the birds you see in your backyard. The lock is so central to their biology that it defines their lifestyle. Sleeping high in trees keeps them away from predators, and the lock is their safety harness. Without it, their entire strategy of survival would collapse. Think about how this compares to human technology again. When engineers design robots to grasp objects, they often struggle with energy efficiency. Robot hands usually require continuous motors or actuators to keep a grip. If power cuts out, the object falls. But in birds, the natural design means that failure is impossible. If energy shuts down, if the bird is unconscious or asleep, the grip doesn't weaken, it actually strengthens. That's why researchers studying bio-inspired robotics look at birds as blueprints for better machines. By copying this mechanism, we could design prosthetics or climbing tools that lock without draining batteries. Another fascinating detail is how smooth the transition is between grip and release. For you, unclenching your hand takes conscious effort. For birds, it's tied directly to movement. When they push off to fly, the leg extends and the toes let go instantly, like a spring returning to its rest position. No delay, no hesitation. That precision is what allows flocks of small birds to take off in perfect unison, as though they're one organism. You've probably seen it, a tree suddenly exploding into motion, dozens of tiny bodies lifting into the sky at once. That phenomenon is only possible because every individual bird is equipped with this mechanical trigger. Let's bring in a thought experiment. Imagine a world without the tendon lock. Birds would be forced to sleep on the ground, exposed to foxes, snakes, or even just the chill of the soil. They would waste massive amounts of energy just staying balanced while trying to rest. Evolution might have never allowed small songbirds to exist in such abundance. The dawn chorus that wakes us in spring, the sight of entire flocks migrating overhead, all of that might disappear. A single small piece of anatomy literally enables the soundtrack of nature. This is where we hit the eureka moment. The mystery of why birds don't fall from branches is not just a curiosity. It's a window into how life evolves elegant solutions to problems we didn't even know existed. Gravity is relentless, muscles tire, sleep is unavoidable, and yet evolution found a way to turn gravity itself into the locking force. The very thing that could pull the bird down instead keeps it safe. That inversion of problem into solution is what makes this story so satisfying. When you walk through a park or forest from now on, you might notice sparrows dozing quietly on twigs. Instead of thinking of them as fragile little creatures balanced precariously, you'll see them as tiny engineers, each carrying a marvel of biomechanics in their legs. You'll know that under every calm pose is a mechanism that even human designers admire. And that understanding transforms the ordinary into something extraordinary. Science does this again and again. It turns, "Of course, that's obvious," into "Wait, how is that even possible?" And then into "Wow, that makes perfect sense." That journey from confusion to clarity is the joy of discovery. And birds in their nightly stillness are silent teachers of that joy. So next time you spot one perched high above, let it remind you of how much wonder hides in plain sight. The fact that they don't tumble to the ground is not luck or magic. It's the tendon lock, a perfect example of how nature's designs can be more clever, more efficient, and more inspiring than anything we build. And if that sparks your curiosity, then you're already flying with them, at least in spirit. If you enjoyed unlocking this hidden piece of nature with me, make sure to like this video, share it with a friend who loves birds or engineering, and subscribe to How It Actually Works. This channel is your key to seeing the hidden mechanics of the world in a whole new way. Stay curious, because every ordinary thing around you has a story waiting to be cracked open. And the more we explore together, the more of those aha moments we'll discover.